Just waiting for a few more folks to pop on, and then we are going to get started. Today I'm doing a live video for my students. If you are not one of my students and you are watching, I teach middle school family and consumer science. And obviously with this COVID pandemic, we are cooking long distance. And so it makes it kind of difficult. I see I've got about 4 people watching. When you pop on, if you want me to say hi, like message, tell me you're watching. It's not like Facebook where I can like see who's watching. So if you're watching live, I'd love to know. Just let me know you're here. Just trying to find something in my pantry and it's not cooperating. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So, how's everybody doing today? If you are watching via Facebook and you're one of my Facebook friends, I sent you guys a link to the recipe that we're making today. What we're making is the Thomas Jefferson mac and cheese. So if you like follow American folklore, apparently Thomas Jefferson invented macaroni and cheese. I don't know how true that is. Dude's not exactly from like a cheesy part of the world, but to each their own. Obviously, we are in Wisconsin. We are in the cheese capital of the United States, so there is lots of cheese. This recipe we're using today uses 3 kinds of cheese. It uses gouda, mozzarella, and cheddar. Okay, hi Maya. I bought lots of cheese last week. I bought 20 pounds of cheese. No, 25 pounds of cheese last week. I love cheese. And we got it on a really good deal, so I'm not really complaining about the cheese. So if you guys, I'm just going to kind of flip back and forth between screens. But with this recipe, so we start by getting our baking dishes ready. So I am going to grab my baking dish and show you guys how we get going. So the recipe that I'm using is an 8x8. It's a smaller pan. You can double this recipe and do it in a 9x13 if you want more mac and cheese. But I'm just doing an 8x8. You need to grease the pan. You can do that by using like the wrapper of your butter. You can use like vegetable oil spray. You don't want it very thick. Like you can still see through this. This is important. It shouldn't be pooling. Like I should be able to turn this upside down and stuff doesn't leak out. That is imperative, okay? Make sure you don't have oil dripping out of your pan, okay? So that's important. All right, so my pan is greased. I'm going to set it off to the side. All right. Then we move on to getting the water boiling and our roux going, okay? So if you guys look back here on my stove, I've got a big pot back here in the back. It's already on. This is a large 8-quart stock pot. It's filled about 1/3 of the way. Okay, you have to cook pasta in a lot of water, okay? You should totally make this for your birthday dinner, Maya. You have to cook pasta in a lot of water, otherwise pasta sticks to itself and turns to food glue, which is awesome if you're a food photographer. It's terrible if you like to eat, okay? The other thing about pasta is you need to salt the water. Pasta doesn't taste like anything. Okay. Let me show you how much salt I'm using. Like, this is a big pinch. And this type of salt that I'm using is called kosher salt, okay? It's really coarse, okay? It's not like the stuff that comes in the shaker, okay? I buy it in a big old box, all right? And when you cook pasta, okay, comes in a big old box, all right? When you cook pasta, your water should be salty like the ocean. Like that's the best way to describe it. So think about basically a tablespoon for every gallon or so. Salt on the pasta. So Hope, you would like salt the noodles, you mean like after it's cooked? Yeah, you can totally salt it after you've tasted it, but you want to layer flavor. So a big mistake that like home cooks make is that they don't season their food well enough while it's cooking. Like even potatoes, like if you're gonna make mashed potatoes, you even have to salt the water you cook the potatoes in, because pasta, rice, potatoes, they don't taste like anything, and that salt is really important. So my noodles, they're just dry, okay? But before I boil them, I put them in salty water, okay? And that makes a big difference. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my pasta measured. So it's ready to go. All right. Oh, hold on. What I thought I had is not next to me. Okay. So I'm not doing the whole box of pasta. I'm only doing 2 cups. Okay. So I'm going to measure my 2 cups of pasta. Okay. If you have a measurement for like dry ingredients, like pasta or rice or something like that, unless it says cooked, it's talking about the raw ingredient. It's talking about it uncooked. So I have 2 cups of uncooked pasta, okay? That's important. Like people are like, well, I don't know, is that 2 cups cooked? Is that 2 cups uncooked? This 2 cups of uncooked pasta is gonna be like 6 cups when it's cooked. Okay, so that's really important to know. It increases in size, just like rice. Rice about triples in volume, okay? It's still the same amount, technically, okay? But the volume and the weight changes because it absorbs the water, okay? Same with pasta, right? So that water is on hot, okay? With salt in it, still trucking away. Yes, the more you know, Maya. Okay, now we're gonna start on the roux. That's the cheese sauce. When I say roux, it's R-O-U-X. Okay, fancy word. It's French. Okay, and basically what we're making today is called a bechamel sauce. It's one of the French mother sauces. Okay, and it's basically just a cheese sauce made with butter and flour, or a milk sauce. Sorry, it's a milk sauce made with butter and flour, and then we add cheese to it, and the milk and the butter make it really smooth, and the flour makes it thick, so that the cheese sticks to your pasta. Okay, so I have a deeper handled pot, okay, that I'm going to make my roux in, okay? So, again, I'm going to turn my stove on here, okay, and I'm going to get that heated up. So if you're following the recipe, okay, I've moved on to the second set of directions, okay, and I'm going to melt my butter, okay, which is a half of a stick, okay, and then I'm going to add my flour, so 2 tablespoons. All right, so I just got the butter up. Where did I put it? Ah, there it is. It was hiding behind my oven mitt. Butter. Okay, so I have my butter. I need a half a stick. Half a stick is 4 tablespoons. So those of you, if you had me in 6th grade, you might remember that we talk about butter as a unit of measurement. It really is. The way we treat butter as a cooking tool, it really is kind of its own unit of measure. But a whole stick of butter typically is 8 tablespoons or a half of a cup, okay? And if you look on a stick of butter, right on the side are the tablespoon markings, and then there's these blocks that show you those other measurements, okay? So a whole stick is a half a cup, a half of a stick is a fourth of a cup, and then 5 1/3 tablespoons is a third of a cup. I know, you don't really use a third of a cup of butter. The reason this is there, though, is because a lot of times you don't want to melt the butter in order to measure it. It changes the way the butter works if you pre-melt it, especially in baking, Okay, totally changes your recipe. So definitely use the butter in the form that your recipe tells you. So we're just gonna melt it in the pan, okay? So it should melt pretty quick. All right, so my butter is melting. I'll go ahead and get my flour measured here. All right, I'm gonna measure my flour into another measuring cup. My flour's over here, out of sight. Okay. Try not to move around too much in my kitchen, otherwise you guys can't really see me. So, but my flour's over here. I'm just reaching off for it. Okay. All right. So I've got my 2 tablespoons of flour here, just waiting. Okay. 2 tablespoons is also 1/8 of a cup. Most people don't have 1/8 cup measuring cups, but if you did, food for thought. Okay. So my 2 tablespoons in there. The butter is almost melted. Okay. One of the reasons I really love this recipe is because it has so much flavor. This macaroni and cheese packs a punch. Okay. It's not just cheese. And there's nothing wrong with that, but cheese in and of itself is really just fat and salt. And it doesn't have a really deep flavor profile unless you're getting the really fancy cheeses, and you don't really put those in mac and cheese. So in order to give that like comfort food a big flavor punch, you've got to add stuff to it. Okay, so that's almost done. Let me show you what we're going to put in the sauce to give this mac and cheese flavor. So you've already seen me with my salt. Okay, right? My jar even says salt on it, and it's kind of hard to see. Okay, but I'm going to use some more salt. I'm going to use fresh cracked pepper. The difference in using pepper that you're grinding fresh versus like what's in a shaker is the flavor's just stronger. Okay, think about like a fresh orange, okay, versus like mandarin oranges that come in like a can or something like that. That flavor of that fresh orange is so much more intense. Same concept even with spices. Your spices should be fresh. So like at school, you guys might be like, why does she constantly come around and refill our cinnamon or refill that? Because I don't want it to go bad. So I buy one and spread it out among all of you so you always have fresh. If I bought big ones and we just waited for them to empty every year or every 2 years or every 3 years, it would not taste good. Bad. Okay? So it's got to be fresh. That's what makes it taste good. Even your spices, a year tops. Like that is your shelf life for spices. If they're older than that, throw them away. Okay? Bad. All right? Buy them smaller ones if you're not going to use them all. Like don't buy a huge thing if you're not going to use it. Okay? I buy oregano like that for my own house because we go through it so fast. I put oregano in everything. Plus I make my own taco seasoning, and oregano's one of my favorite things to put in taco seasoning. The water is boiling. Okay. Water is boiling. Let's talk about pasta. I'm about to throw my noodles in there. The pasta needs to be al dente. That's Italian. It means to the tooth. It means you should be able to chew it. It shouldn't just fall apart in your mouth. And that's what I mean, like Kraft mac and cheese. Like I'm not knocking Kraft. I love me some Kraft when I'm just feeling like that's what I want. But those noodles fall apart. They cannot sustain baking. They just can't. Okay, so when you use actual like pasta, okay, and if you look, like these are way bigger than those like really thin noodles you get in like a Kraft box. Okay, they already have more substance to them. So we don't want to overcook them. We want to cook them al dente, and then they will finish cooking in the oven with all that cheese. And then they'll absorb some of that cheese into the noodle, and that's really important. Okay, so water's boiling, pasta. All right, set a timer. You've got lots of stuff going on, set a timer. It's just so much easier, okay? So I'm gonna set my timer on my microwave, okay? Okay, I set it for 9 minutes, okay? And that's plenty. You also need to be ready to drain your pasta, okay? So, have your colander ready to go, okay? It's a colander because it has a foot on the bottom, so I can set it in my sink and I don't have to worry about it wobbling, Okay, so colander has a foot. Peekaboo. All right, so set your colander in your sink so you're ready to drain your pasta. Okay, so pasta's boiling. All right, I'm gonna give it a little stir just so nothing's sticking to the bottom. Okay, my butter is all melted. All right, let me grab a spoon here, or my whisk out of the dishwasher. Okay, I'm gonna use a whisk to make my roux. Okay, so my flour goes in. All right, I'll show you guys the inside of my pot. Okay, so see all that butter? Yummy. Okay, I am going to whisk the butter and flour together. Okay, you should smell that flour cooking. It kind of smells like crackers. Okay, like a Ritz cracker, like a buttery cracker. You want to cook the flour smell out. Like, you shouldn't still smell flour, okay? So we're cooking out the flour smell. You really only have to do this for a couple minutes. I make roux a lot because we're from the South. So this is how I start gravy. Okay, if you like biscuits and gravy, that's a bechamel sauce. That milk gravy, that white gravy with sausage, that's a bechamel sauce. Okay, we really like gumbo at our house. With gumbo, I cook my roux until it is brown like a Hershey bar, like thick brown. This, we're not doing that. I just want it to kind of be like a tan color. Okay, all right. So I'll show you guys what color it is. Whoop. Okay, it's just like a light tan. Okay, light tan. All right. So there's my roux. Now I'm going to add my spices. Okay, so when we come back over here to the recipe, all right, I'm going to add salt, black pepper, thyme, and cayenne. So I'm adding a teaspoon of salt and then a quarter teaspoon of each of the other ones. Okay, so let me get out my measuring spoons. All right, teaspoon of salt. Okay, and I'm still using kosher salt. I do not use iodized salt at all. Kosher salt is actually the least salty salt. So if you have people who shouldn't eat a lot of salt in your life, kosher salt's the way to go. It's actually lower in sodium. Sea salt is the saltiest salt, and you need the least amount of it. Okay, so I do sea salt as well. All right, I need 1/4 of a teaspoon of thyme. Thyme is an herb that's kind of got a lemony taste to it. I'm actually out of thyme, so I'm using tarragon. Totally different spice, but I still really love it. It's a very fresh tasting herb. You could use oregano, you could use dill if you like dill, but it still has a good bit of punch. Now, cayenne pepper is on the list for this recipe. Cayenne is spicy. 1/4 of a teaspoon isn't a lot, and you're adding it to something with a lot of milk. Okay, and milk, the casein, which is a protein in milk, balances out the capsaicin, which is a protein in or a compound in peppers that makes them spicy. Okay. Okay. So if someone in your family doesn't handle heat well, okay, you can always use less, or you can leave it out altogether. It's really not a big deal. Okay, it is hard to measure fresh cracked pepper in a spoon. So typically, it's about, at least for me, I kind of go by sight. I'll be really honest. You could grind this into like a bowl and then scoop it up, but who wants to do that? I would say probably about 8 cranks is probably 1/4 of a teaspoon. Okay. Okay. But I like pepper, so I'm going to do a few more. Guys, I wish I had smell-o-vision. The smell of that butter browning, it is so yummy. It's like cookies. Okay. And now that we have all those spices in the butter, okay, now the butter has changed colors. Okay. Yummy. All right. So that's a good thing. All right. This whole time, guys, my roux, my butter, has been on like medium, okay? I don't want it on high. Butter does burn, so you definitely don't want it to be too hot. My pasta is still on high because you want to cook pasta fast. You want to cook it hot and fast, okay? And you don't have to have the grinder. You can totally use shaker pepper, okay? You can totally use shaker pepper. But fresh cracked pepper, if you don't use it on a regular basis, like it will change your opinion about pepper in food. Like pepper turns from this like black stuff in your food to like an actual spice that tastes like something and has like a punch. It really does make a difference. Like there's a reason French cuisine uses so much pepper, because it tastes good. In America, we just go for convenience. We want things to be fast and easy. And shaker pepper is that, but it doesn't taste as good. It just doesn't. So like when we make this at school, I actually have fresh cracked pepper that we use for this because it does make a difference. Okay, so my pasta has 2 more minutes on it. My seasoned butter is ready. So let's check our recipe again. Okay, now, all right, we are going to take the milk and add it to our pot. And then we're going to add in our cheese. All right. So I forgot to check the recipe for how much milk. I think it's 2 cups. It is 2 cups. Okay. Y'all, I swear my kids take my stuff out of my house and I don't know where it goes. I really don't. Okay. All right. We're going to rough it. We're going to use Pyrex. All right. So I'm going to take my cheese sauce off the heat. So I use gas. It's my preferred way to cook. Gas gets nice and hot. It cooks fast. So I use gas. So I'm going to take it off the heat. Okay, I'm going to get my milk. Okay, I need 2 cups of milk. And yes, this looks like a lot. I know. Okay. All right. And I am going to whisk as I add it because I don't want to scald my milk. So that's a fancy way to say burn my milk. Okay, I don't want to burn my milk. Okay. Smells a little like popcorn. Okay. I don't want to burn my milk, so I whisk it as it goes in. All right. So I got all of my spices and my milk, all that good stuff. Okay. And now we're going to start with the cheese. Okay. I'm actually going to start with my gouda. It's really hard to find grated gouda. You can find brick gouda at Walmart though. Okay. And it's not like super expensive. People think like you start to find these weird cheeses that they're really expensive. They're not. Gouda's not crazy expensive at all. Okay. But I really hate grating cheese. I really hate it. I would much rather buy pre-grated cheese. Oh, there goes my timer. All right. So hold that thought. Before we grate the gouda, or cut the gouda, because I'm not going to grate it, we're going to drain the pasta so it doesn't overcook. Okay? All right, so I'm going to turn off my burner in the back. Okay, I'm going to turn it off. All right, oven mitts. So I use gas. The handles get hot because it's right over the fire. So I use oven mitts when I am pulling things off of the gas. Okay. All right, some of my noodles are stuck on the bottom. I'm just going to loosen them up. They shouldn't be burned though, okay, because I did stir my pasta while it was cooking. That's really important. You don't have to stir it constantly, but you do have to take care of it. Okay, don't ignore it. All right. Okay, see? No more noodles. Well, a couple, but that's okay. And I'm actually going to put my noodles back in the pot because this pot's bigger and it's easier to make my sauce in, okay? So now that my pasta is all cooked, okay, I'm just going to put it right back in my pot, okay? Oop, a couple string noodles, all right? Plus, perfect. My pasta pot still has all that yummy salt in it that I cooked with it. It's good. I didn't wash my pasta. That's important. Don't wash your noodles. I don't know where that trend started. Don't wash your noodles. That's weird. Okay. You wash off all the good stuff. You wash off all the salt. You wash off all the starch. Like you literally wash off the flavor and the stuff that makes things stick to your noodles. Like don't wash your pasta. Don't do it. Okay. All right. So much cheese. It's the Leaning Tower of Cheese. You've missed me, I know. Okay, so let's cut the cheese. If my 7-year-old was here, he'd laugh. But he's, I don't know, in like YouTube Kids Land or something. Okay, so here, I'll turn the thing down so you can see my cutting board. And yes, I have this little fancy cutting board that comes out of my countertop and I love it. So I'm just going to cut this brick. This is an 8-ounce brick. 8 ounces of brick cheese, once grated, is about 2 cups. Okay. And the recipe tells you to pack your cheeses. Okay. In this recipe. So, and that's just so you get a lot of cheese in the thing. Okay. I see, it was funny, wasn't it, Maya? I know. I'm hilarious. Well, at least I try to be. There's no one at home to laugh at my corny jokes. Or I guess in this case, my cheesy jokes. There's no one here to laugh at my cheesy jokes without my students. All right. So I'm just cutting this into like small dices. Okay. All right. Just little cheese cubes. Okay. Gouda is super soft. If you don't have Gouda or you can't find Gouda, you could totally substitute American cheese for this. Okay. Like a brick of Velveeta. Okay. Or like the Velveeta style cheeses that you can get. Okay. You could substitute even like sandwich slices as just a lot of work. Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn my stove back on so I can start melting my cheese. I'm just going to put it on low right now. Okay. This recipe has you only put 1.5 cups of each cheese in the cheese sauce. And then you save 1/2 cup of each for the toppings. I'm not going to save 1/2 cup of the Gouda because I'm not shredding it. Because I'm dicing it, it just takes longer to melt. So I'm just going to put the whole thing in the pot so it can melt in there. But I will save the mozzarella and the cheddar. That's one thing that people, I think, mistake about macaroni and cheese. Cheddar does not melt nicely. It is not a nicely melting cheese. It's very dry, which is fine. Okay. Cheddar's delicious. Obviously, it's got a ton of flavor. It's nice and salty. I love cheddar cheese, but it doesn't melt nicely. So we have to use some of those cheeses that do melt nicely. Gouda, mozzarella, Monterey Jack, American. Okay. Don't let the cheese brigade come yell at me for the American cheese, but it does melt really nicely. So I definitely prefer mozzarella or Gouda and mozzarella, Monterey Jack. Okay. Cheddar, while delicious, does not melt well. Okay. And the other thing is cheddar's kind of oily. And do not ever cut your bags with knives like I'm doing right now. Do not use my knives at school like this. These are my knives at home and I sharpen them all the time. Okay, the knives at school I bought 25 pounds of cheese. I've been keeping this all in the freezer. Cheese freezes beautifully. So if you ever find a good deal on cheese, buy it. Okay? Because cheese you can store in the freezer like for a long time. Okay? So don't like hesitate to do that. Okay? So now I'm going to do my 1.5 cups of cheese. Okay. All right. Of each kind. And because it's frozen, I can't really pack it like I could if it was fresh or thawed, I guess. I shouldn't say fresh. Of course, it's still fresh cheese. It's freshly frozen. But if it was thawed, okay, I could, whatchamacallit, I could pack it down a lot easier, okay? All right. All right, so there's the cheddar. Everything's better with cheddar. See, cheesy jokes for you. You know you've missed me. Okay. So, yeah, more cheesy jokes. All right. Oh, this one's not nearly as easy as the cheddar. Okay, so this is my mozzarella, my white cheese. Mozzarella is an Italian cheese. Traditionally, it's made with buffalo milk, like water buffalo. It's delicious, by the way. Love whole milk, buffalo milk mozzarella. Buffalo mozzarella. Mozzarella. I went to Italy on my honeymoon when I got married. And I swear all I did was eat cheese. For like 10 days, I just ate cheese. It was glorious. And my husband and I went to the same restaurant every night while we were there. And we literally just ate everything on the menu. So over the course of 10 days, we ate the entire menu. We decided if we were going to do Italy, we wanted to do it right. And we wanted to do it like the locals. So we found a great little local bistro, basically. It's called a trattoria. So like, if you guys are in Sheboygan, Stefano is a trattoria. Okay. It's basically like a nice family restaurant, okay, that makes traditional food. So, Trattoria Stefano, okay. But we ate everything on the menu. Well, the entire menu is in Italian. I don't speak Italian. My husband doesn't speak Italian. I speak Spanish. I can read Latin. My husband can read Greek. Nobody speaks Italian. So here we are trying to decipher this menu in Italian. And we did okay. We ordered some things that I didn't like so much, or that he didn't like so much. But for the most part, it was a very pleasant experience. My husband loves like stinky cheese, like blue cheese. I am not a blue cheese fan. And so Italian blue cheese is gorgonzola. And it is very fragrant. It has a very strong smell. And so anytime you see something that's like quatre fromage, means 4 cheese, usually blue cheese or gorgonzola is in that. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you get lucky. So like sometimes in Italian food, quatre fromage is like provolone, ricotta, mozzarella, and like pecorino, fontina, parmesan. You get one of those. Well, we went out one night and we got dinner and we ordered a quatre fromage pizza. It was like the wood-fired pizza. There's going to be a new wood-fired pizza opening in Sheboygan in the Shiny Harry's on Calumet. You should all go because that is like the greatest kind of pizza ever. But we got a quatre fromage and it had pecorino, fontina, and provolone and gorgonzola, as well as my like 2 of my favorite pizza toppings, pancetta, was it pancetta? Which is like Italian bacon, and arugula, which is a really delicious like green, like a salad green, and it's kind of peppery. Like it is such a yummy type of lettuce. It doesn't need dressing. Like I will eat handfuls of arugula. I love it so much. It's almost like an herb for salad. It's incredible. So yummy. Okay. So I'm just over here whisking my cheese sauce away into oblivion. Okay. I'm breaking my own rule and I didn't even preheat my oven, you guys. I'm terrible. Breaking my own rule. Okay. This whole time, my oven should have been on preheating. Oh, wait, that's not what I want. So I have a convection oven, which means there's a fan in there and it blows. So it pushes the air around in the oven so your food actually cooks faster. If you have convection at home, depending on your oven, so like my oven automatically lowers the temperature 25 degrees with the convection. If your oven at home is convection and it doesn't do that, you should be lowering the temperature by 25 degrees. The recipe that's online is designed for us to do this in class. So it's designed that we would make this one day, freeze it, and then your teacher would start baking it for you before you got to class, and then we would finish them as a class. If you're making this at home, just skip that whole like cover and freeze section because you don't have to do that, okay? Just go right from getting it all put together into the oven, okay? Just skip that whole like storage phase. You don't have to do that, okay? So my cheese sauce is nice and thick. The cheese is not super melted, and that's okay. It's going to melt in the oven, okay? But it's all nice and incorporated and ready to go, okay? So now I'm going to take my cheese sauce and put it on my noodles, okay? Okay. Plus, you don't want to like super melt your cheese in your pan because then it gets really hard to clean out of the pan, especially if you burn it. It's better for it to be a little underdone, okay, and still like cheese versus completely liquefied. The oven will melt it, I promise, okay? But you do want to mix it in with your noodles really, really well, okay? And like, it's already melting the cheese because my noodles are still hot, okay? I'm just gonna get all the cheese. Look at this gooey, gooey cheese. Get all the cheese here off my spoon, okay? And I'll show you guys what it looks like. It looks super wet, and that's okay, okay? See, it looks really wet. That's fine, okay? Because it's going to finish in the oven. Okay, so now we're gonna get back out that pan that I sprayed. Okay. All right, make sure you keep something to get all your pasta out of your pot with. Okay, I'll turn this down so you guys can see my board here. All right. Okay, and we're going to put the noodles in the pan. Okay. Oh. Look at all that cheesy goodness, guys. Oh my goodness. I realized after I scheduled this that we're making macaroni and cheese on like the ultimate Taco Tuesday. It's Cinco de Mayo. And I'm originally from Texas, so we do Cinco de Mayo right where I'm from. And I kind of feel like this is terrible that I'm making macaroni and cheese on Cinco de Mayo. But everybody loves mac and cheese. Okay, and it reheats delicious. All right, so now you're going to add the rest of that cheese that you saved, okay, that half of a cup of each kind to the top, okay? A half of a cup's about a handful. Shh, don't tell anybody, okay? We're just going to add that on the top. So it'll melt while it's cooking and kind of make a nice like seal, like a nice crust on it. Okay. All right. Just golden and bubbly. The other reason we put the cheese on is we're going to do a breadcrumb topping. Okay. And like I said, I'm originally from Texas. And so we do cheese, or we do mac and cheese with a crunchy topping. Buttered breadcrumbs, corn flakes, potato chips, like anything like that is delicious. Crumbled up Ritz crackers, like any of that is delicious on top of mac and cheese. Okay, so I'm gonna take some more butter. Okay, I'm gonna take 2 tablespoons or so of butter. I've done this a lot. I think I'm gonna do 3, just because I've done this so many times. I know how much I like. Okay, because I really like my breadcrumbs buttery. And again, okay, this is just a metal mixing bowl, so I just have it over low heat so that the butter melts. Okay. And I already used it, so there's no point in dirtying another pan. I just need to melt the butter. You can't put metal in the microwave. Okay. So you could also melt the butter in the microwave, but I'm not gonna do that. Okay. So I'm just gonna let that butter melt here on the stove. All right. And I have panko breadcrumbs. You could use like seasoned Italian breadcrumbs. That works. You could use, what else could you use? Like I said, cornflakes are definitely like one of my all-time favorites for this. Love cornflakes. Okay. And I want to say this is 2 cups of panko. Let me double check the recipe. Oh, just 1 cup of panko. Okay. All right. So 1 cup of panko. I feel like we're frozen here. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay. Still working. There we go. Now we hear that butter melting. All right. So this just calls for a cup of panko. This is just a 1/2 cup measuring cup. Okay. And the reason we do this is we want the breadcrumbs buttery. Okay. They get a really good taste when they are buttery. Okay. So, all right. So I'm just going to mix the butter into the panko. Okay. All right. Just so that there start to be kind of like some clumpy bits. Okay. You don't want the breadcrumbs wet. Okay. You just want to see that they have butter on them. Okay. All right. And I use salted butter basically for everything. If you are using unsalted butter, you can definitely sprinkle a little salt in here just to give them a little more flavor. But the salted butter has enough salt in it. Okay. All right. So panko, nice and buttery. And now I am going to top my mac and cheese. Okay. Your phone is glitching. Got it. Okay. I was like, what happened there? So now I'm going to top the mac and cheese with the panko. Okay. And you don't want like a thin layer. Like you don't want to be able to see what's below. Okay. You want a nice thick layer that you have to like crunch through when you serve this up. Okay. So here we go. Just spreading these out, push it all the way to the edges. Okay. The reason I like so many breadcrumbs on is that way, obviously, like when you cut this or when you start serving it up, it will kind of like come out. And the panko, the breadcrumbs will fall down. Panko is a Japanese breadcrumb, by the way. It's super, super crunchy. And it's not very expensive. Like I got that canister of panko breadcrumbs at Walmart. It's like $1. So it's not a very expensive ingredient. Okay. Okay. But yeah, so you want it nice and thick. That way when you crunch it out, okay, the breadcrumbs like fall down into the cheese. And so you get that crunchy bite with everything. Okay. So we are ready. All right. I have my yummy, ooey gooey mac and cheese. Okay, we're going to go right into a hot oven. Okay, and this is going to go for about a half an hour. But here's what I always tell my students. When you bake, okay, trust your senses. Your nose, your eyes do not lie to you, okay? If it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. If it looks like it's done, it smells like it's done, it's done. Okay. The top is going to be a golden color. You might have a little bit of more browning. That's okay. Brown is good. Brown is what makes food taste good. Okay. That cheese might be bubbling. You might have a couple pieces like little like volcanoes of cheese. That's good. We like cheesy volcanoes. Cheese volcano. Okay. So use your senses. Trust your senses when you cook. Okay. Like I said, these don't lie. They don't. This definitely doesn't lie. Okay. Trust your senses. If it looks like it's done, and here's the deal. Everything that's in this is already cooked. So even if it's not totally done, You're not going to get sick. Okay. You can always put food back in and let it cook longer. You can't uncook it. Okay. If it's overdone, that's it. Game over. Okay. But you can always put it back in and let it go a little bit longer. Okay. So I'm going to let that go 20 or 30 minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I will post pictures of when it's done and maybe a short little video as well. I will make sure I link this video onto the haiku page because this week, 7th graders, you're making lunch. You don't have to make my recipes for lunch, but I would like you to either make a pasta dish or a soup, and I would like you to make it somewhat from scratch. So don't just open a can and heat, okay? Make it somewhat from scratch. Or you can totally watch a video and you can critique that video with the distance learning lab form. So if you guys logged on and you watched with me today, I'm so happy. I miss you guys so much. I cannot wait till we are back in school together. I know that won't be until September, but it's okay. I am going to for sure go live again at least one more time for you guys with dinner and maybe even dessert. I never do dessert really with 7th grade because we run out of time, but I've had some requests to show peach cobbler. People love my peach cobbler, so maybe we'll do peach cobbler. Nothing springier than that, okay? I love you guys. Stay safe. Stay healthy, okay? Keep reaching out to all of your teachers. If you need us, we are here for you. We miss you guys so much. Okay, so reach out to us if you need us. And otherwise, okay, I'll post pictures when it's done. All right, bye everybody.